Where do you predict Shador and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
That's pretty beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be 1. The latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't going to happen. It's gonna
Okay,
be a
you
Peyton
on
Manning.
point.
It's going to be it's not I'm sorry, it's going to be an Eli.
So basically his son, who's a quarterback, Travis Hunter, who's either a wide receiver or a corner. He plays both sides of the ball. It's actually quite amazing what kind of athlete he is. But he says they're going to go anywhere between 1 and 4. They're both going in the top 4. So if one goes 1, then other one's not going to fall past 4. That's basically what he's saying. 2 of his players will go in the top 4. That's honestly fair to say, because he's got some great athletes. His son's a really good quarterback. And, he decided not to come out this year where you've got, Drake May and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Jay McCarthy and Bo Nix and then Michael Penix and like Joe Milton from Tennessee. All these guys are coming out. He's like, okay, well, I'll just be the best quarterback in college next year and I'll come out next year when I'm literally, should be the first pick or whatever it is, right? But the part of this that's interesting to me is not declaring that they're going to be top 4, right? That's fine. I don't think that really brings headlines anymore. 4 years ago, we'd be saying, oh, Deion Sanders says this isn't going to. No, we know that they're talented. We know how this works. So that's not really necessarily like a big deal. The big deal is I know where I want them to go. So it's going to be an Eli. So for those of you who don't understand exactly what he means when he says it's going to be an Eli, basically Eli Manning was drafted by a team. And I want to say it was the Chargers. So Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and Ben Roethlisberger all got drafted in the same draft class. And Eli, I believe, was drafted to the Chargers. And Eli basically told them, I'm not going. Like, I'm not playing for you guys. So do with that information as you will, but I'm not going. Like, I'm not playing. So I think the Chargers ended up either happened one of 2 ways, and I apologize that I don't have this off the top of my head, but either the Giants had already drafted Phillip Rivers, and then the Chargers were going to draft Eli, who said he wasn't going to play for them. So then they just drafted Eli and they traded, or the Chargers had drafted Eli, the Giants were picking, and Eli was like, I'm not playing for y'all. And the Chargers was like, hey, just here, let us give you Eli, and then let us take this pick and we'll draft Phillip Rivers. It was one of those two, but long story short, they got traded for each other because Eli said, I'm not playing for them. Now, of course, Eli being Archie Manning's son, being Peyton Manning's younger brother, had some cachet. But people say this now all the time. You've heard people say, well, maybe Caleb Williams should consider not saying he's not going to play for the Bears because the Bears organization, da, 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 da. There are certain organizations that maybe that makes sense for. Perhaps doing that is like, okay, yeah, don't want to play with them. You don't want to go to that organization. You don't want to play for that owner. Yeah, fine. But for the most part, I don't necessarily think that there's any organization that's like that bad. But again, what do I know? So what I want to get into with this is honestly less about Deion Sanders, his comments, and more about like the divide that it's kind of put, right? So one of the things that is now a huge thing in sports is player empowerment, right? And what that means, right? Is this player empowerment has this thing where we're talking about, as a player, I have more control in what happens for me, right? Everybody knows that in professional sports, you're signing contracts. So it's a lot of, okay, for the next 4 years, I'm here. And just given what CBAs, which are collective bargaining agreements, given like whatever the stipulations are, the contract when you get drafted is set a certain way, and then the contract structure is set a certain way, and then in the NFL. So in the NBA, if you get drafted by a team in the first round, they basically have the rights to you for 7 years as long as they want you. You play your rookie contract for 4 years, and then you get your rookie extension, which is usually 3 more years because they, like, are allowed to pay you money that, like, no other team will pay you, and they can put you on, like, a certain kind of restricted free agent thing. With a lot football is very similar, where they pay you your rookie contract as 4 years, but then they have franchise years, so they can franchise tag you, which is a fully guaranteed contract. Um, and so, like, what the Ravens did with Lamar last year was they put him on the non-exclusive franchise. So someone could say, "Hey, we'll take Lamar," but they have to give up 2 first-round picks to get him. And, so there's just, like, certain contract stuff that makes it to where, okay, like, where you are, you're gonna have to be there. Kirk Cousins had to be with the Redskins, formerly known as the Redskins. Then they were the football team, and now they are the Commanders for 6 or 7 years because he had to play through his rookie contract, and then he got franchised twice. So, um, he didn't, so it's just kinda like you don't have a choice. A lot of your future is in other people's hands, right? Based on your talent. So you don't get to say, okay, well, I want to play in this city. I've got family here, or not until you become a free agent, which is why a lot of players like to go to free agency, which is also why a lot of teams like to keep their players from becoming free agents. Hey, you want a contract? We don't want to pay you. Rather than just letting you walk in free agency, we'll trade you to a team that wants to pay you. You never really became a free agent. You just got traded. Depending on what the situation is, some teams may do right by these players. For example, um, like Justin Fields got traded from the Bears, but they at least gave him a little bit of like did right by him, and I do that with air quotes, um, by trading him where he wanted to go. But still, for the most part, you're a free agent, right? So yeah, so you've got the player empowerment side. Oh, well, I get to choose, like, my future is in my hands. My future, I get to determine what's best for me. This coach might not be the best coach for me. I may fit better in system X versus system Y, and I get to choose that. Um, and I get that. The alternative is what a lot of people are coining as player entitlement, where it's like, hold on. Who since when did you get to just step in here and call the shots? Okay. When did you get to decide that the way we do things is no longer okay? All right. And I think that there are healthy and unhealthy caveats to both. I definitely believe that the idea of being afraid that players are getting or would get entitled to exactly what they want and getting what they want whenever they want it is something to fear. I don't know if it's necessarily something to fear when it comes to football, like when it comes to sports, but I get it. But at the same time, there's so much in life beyond the sport you play that matters. That, yeah, like, okay, if I live in California, I would much rather, and I've got family here, maybe some family are not well. It would behoove me to play in California or close to than have to go play in Boston, right? Like, that's just the nature of the game. And you being a draft pick as a rookie, you set this stage of, well, you're a rookie, so you don't get to say what it is. You're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this how we say this. You're gonna go to the rookie camp, and you're gonna come to camp, and you're gonna get hazed and carry people's bags, and, like, that's just what it is. And there's some strength to the idea that players can say, "Okay, no, I'm not gonna go to the combine anymore, even though that's the status quo. I'm not gonna answer crazy questions. I'm not gonna go run the 40. I'm not gonna go bench press. I'm not doing that stuff. You've seen me play all year. You don't need to now see more." Just like it's and I think that there's some validity to that as well.